You're not a normal woman. You're not warm. You're cold, like ice. Yeah, like ice. Blond Ice.
Blond Ice was a 1948 crime film directed by Jack Bernhard and starring Leslie Brooks as a very devious Black Widow killer who goes around, marries wealthy men who then mysteriously meet their demise. But can she continue to get away with it? Well, we'll find out. This was an enjoyable crime film, and I'll give an overview of the film, spoiler-free, and then offer some closing thoughts. Well, the film opens up, and there's a wedding taking place at this big fancy house. And we see the character of Claire Cummings, played here by lovely actress Leslie Brooks. Now, she's a gossip reporter, and she is here getting married to the wealthy businessman Carl, played by John Holland. We see the characters of Les, actor Robert Page, and he's there bickering with the character of Al, played by James Griffith. Both of these guys were apparently, previously, romantically involved with her. Well, Claire and Carl, they tie the knot, but apparently that doesn't stop her interest in pursuing Les. Now, she's just gotten married, but then she takes Les outside and plants a big kiss on him. I mean, I think we can kind of figure out early she's kind of bad news. Now, Carl seems suspicious, but she says, oh, it was just a goodbye kiss, and, well, Carl, he just kind of goes along with it. It should be noted, and I'll talk about this later, that most of the men in this film are pretty gullible when it comes to Claire's charms. Well, a little bit later, Carl catches Claire. She's writing some letters. But when one accidentally drops on the ground, he picks it up and he sees that she has written out that she's tired of him and her marriage. Well, he's had enough, and he plans to divorce her. Now, Claire, however, has a scheme. So she finds a guy who has recently gotten out of lockup who flies planes. This is a character, Blackie Talon. I love that name. That's awesome. Played by Russ Vincent. And she basically pays him cash to, on the spot, give her a flight that night, no questions asked. And he agrees. So off she goes. Now, meanwhile, Les shows up for work. Now, he's a sports writer, and he's there, and he's chatting with the secretary, June, Mildred Coles. He's very friendly with him and seems to have an interest in him. And it's here that he gets a call from Claire asking if he would arrange a flight back for her. Well, June isn't too happy about this.
June, get a hold of Hack Doyle. Have him get me a reservation on the 8 o'clock plane out of Los Angeles tonight. It's for Mrs. Hanneman.
Are you planning to meet her?
Yeah. Oh, I guess I'll have to cancel our dinner party tonight.
It doesn't matter. Apparently Claire can get anything she wants out of anybody at any time. Can't she?
Well, he picks her up, and Claire still has open romantic feelings, apparently, for Les. Now, she wants to go and freshen up first at her place to make herself look beautiful for Les before they go out. But it's here that they both find Carl dead in a chair. Now, Les assumes it's suicide, and Claire, of course, acts surprised and devastated. Now, Les brings Claire to stay with some friends, and it's here that the police captain, Bill Murdoch, played by Emery Parnell, arrives. And he asks some questions. He, too, seems very suspicious of this whole crime situation and of Claire. Well, the next day at work, Al shows up, as he is the one assigned to investigate the story. And he is just as suspicious as well, as there were no fingerprints found on the gun. Now, as mentioned earlier, Les and Al, they have this loathing for one another, so this will continue to build through the film. Now, the DA wants to meet with both Les and Claire, so they show up the next day. They believe it's murder, but Claire gets off through a lack of evidence. So they let her go, but they won't dismiss this as a suicide, but instead an unsolved murder.
According to the police scientific detection laboratory, the pistol found near the body was the one used in the death of your husband. But they found no powder burns on the clothes of Mr. Hanneman, nor fingerprints of any description on the gun. Furthermore, it was brought out that Mr. Hanneman couldn't have fired the gun because in making certain tests of his hand for traces of powder marks, none was found.
Just what are you driving at?
Simply this. Carl Hanneman was murdered. But unfortunately, I haven't enough evidence to hold either of you. You were out of town, and your alibi was proven. You're free to go. But let me give you a tip. I'm not buying any suicide theory, so the case will remain open.
So the next day, Claire stops back at the office and she wants her old job back. Remember, she was like a gossip reporter. So much for grieving, I guess. She talks to Les and the editor, the character Hack, played by Walter Sandy, and she gets her job back because apparently she just needed the money. So Les and Claire, they go out for dinner and martinis, chicken salad for two and coffee, before Claire spots Stanley Mason. He's played by actor Michael Whalen. Now, this is a man running for Congress, and she just instantly sets her eyes on him. So initially, she wants him to represent her legally with the estate, following the murder. So the police captain wants to go and speak with Les, so he's taken away. And that gives Al a chance to move in and speak with Claire. And it's here that she convinces Al to introduce her to Stanley Mason. And he agrees to go and introduce them, and he will also be willing to represent her because it seems like all the guys in this film just instantly fall in love with Claire. So they meet privately to discuss the estate, and it's here that he asks her out for dinner because clearly he's fallen for her wiles. Now, back at home later, Les is still being strung along by Claire. He's really pretty gullible, it would seem, but he just can't resist this woman. He seems to be conflicted, though, and is himself very suspicious of what has happened. But she just keeps applying that sweet sugar to lead this poor sap along. So he's a little bit drunk and he snaps at her, so she orders him to leave her house. But soon the doorbell rings, and oh no, it's that pilot from earlier, the Blackie Talon character. Now, he found out about her from the newspaper, and he figures there's money to be made from blackmail. So he wants money from her to be quiet about her alibi trip that night. And she's furious, of course, but he takes a necklace from her as collateral, but he wants 50G. Well, a little later, Les comes home from his hangover, and June is there to care for him, but she gets the cold shoulder from Claire and leaves. And Claire, of course, apologizes to Les and sweet-talks him, keeping him under her spell. But then, the very next scene, Claire is off with Stanley Mason again, applying her charms on him. Claire is what my wife would refer to colloquially as a hoochie mama. Anyhow, Stanley lets her know that the case has been taken care of and the murder will just be filed away as a case unsolved. So in other words, her name is clear thanks to his work. Now, that Blackie Talon guy still needs money, and he's coming to see her again. She goes for a drive, and she turns over some of her jewelry and money. But as this Blackie Talon is leaving and getting out of the car, she guns him down and drives off. So there's yet another secret murder for her record. Well, Stanley Mason is about to win his election, and he's got a big party going on. Now, Les and Claire arrive, and as Les stands by with his friends, Stanley makes the announcement to everyone that he will be marrying Claire. I mean, seriously, Les, at this point, don't you see that she's bad news? Can't you get it? Well, he takes his hat and coat, and he just leaves in a huff. But later, you know it, Claire visits with Les again and turns on the "I didn't mean to hurt you" and so on, but Les seems to have had enough. And she says things to him like, "You could never give me the things I must have," as an excuse for her bad behavior. And she's about to give him a kiss when Stanley walks in. Just like happened before with the businessman Carl on his wedding day when he walks in and she's kissing Les there. So Stanley calls it off, realizing he has made a terrible mistake.
Oh, darling, let's not quarrel. We can do that after we're married.
There isn't going to be any marriage.
What are you saying?
I'm afraid we've made a mistake.
You can't mean that. What'll my friends think? I couldn't stand the humiliation.
Oh, you'll get over it quickly enough, as quickly as you did your other marriage.
Why are you talking this way? What did that phony doctor tell you?
That's not important. We've made a mistake. Now let's forget it, shall we?
But you can't throw me over. I've looked forward. I've planned. You're taking me to Washington with you. Away from these people, these memories. I've got to go with you, Stanley.
No, I'm sorry. It's final. You ought to see a doctor, Claire. A doctor like Jeff. I looked for you at the party after he talked to me. I merely wanted to ask you something. Doyle told me where I'd find you, but I didn't believe him either. But finding you here proves many things. You're not well, Claire.
But before he leaves, that sneaky Claire talks him into having a quick drink before he leaves, and then she reaches for a knife. Oh no, she is killed again. Now soon, Les returns and does the silly thing that happens in a lot of old movies, where you find a body that's been stabbed, and then you pick up the knife to examine it right as a whole bunch of people come in. You know, they do that a lot in movies. I don't understand why, but anyhow, Claire tells Les that he murdered him, and that he had gone crazy and killed him in a jealous rage. Now this group sees this, and they're just about to announce that Stanley has won the election. But here they find Les with the murder weapon. So what will happen? Is it the big house for Les? Will Claire continue to get away with murder? I'll let you watch the exciting ending for yourself to see how it wraps up. But wow, what a trip this film was. So let me offer some closing thoughts here. I found out about this film when looking up other films with actress Leslie Brooks, as she was briefly in the last film I reviewed, Hollow Triumph. And yes, I do that. I see an actor or an actress. I'm not familiar with them, and I'll look up some of the other films they've been in, or what they're known for. And this was apparently one of her big films. And also, when I see a crime film from the 40s in the public domain, well, yeah, I got to check it out. Now, I got to say this, when researching this film, I love the poster for this. I mean, look at this. If you came into this film knowing nothing about the film, and you saw this image, what would you think? That maybe she's a hard-edged Bay Area detective or something? I mean, I love it. But yeah, that's definitely not the case with the film here. Blond Ice was directed by Jack Bernhard with film photography by George Robinson. It was based on the 1938 novel Once Too Often by Elwyn Whitman Chambers. So here are my thoughts on the film. You know, Leslie Brooks does a great job as this lovely but cold-blooded femme fatale, and you do enjoy watching her going along as she manipulates or destroys one guy after another. You know, and she's this manipulative man-eater, reminiscent of, say, like Barbara Stanwyck in the movie Double Indemnity from 1944. And I like how she just keeps stringing along this poor sap Les the whole time, and he just goes along with her charms while she's going from one guy to another. The story was really good, and I did like the pacing, but it did seem a little predictable, and that you could kind of figure out where things were headed with her character. And as mentioned before, it really makes men look like complete idiots. I mean, I get it. Leslie Brooks is a very lovely actress, but every guy she encounters just seems to go instantly gaga for her. And if you're her former lover, and you find out that her current husband died very recently under mysterious circumstances, then I don't know, maybe it's a good idea to put a little distance there. And if she dumped you, would you really be there at her wedding for another guy? Well, maybe, I guess. But I did think that Leslie Brooks did an excellent job in the role. And she's an interesting study for me, because I couldn't quite place who she looked like. She sort of has a June Lockhart, Eve Arden look, or maybe even Nan Gray. But I liked her performance, and I'll be watching out for more of her films. I might do a future review of the film CoverGirl that she was in with Rita Hayworth. I will be honest, I don't think I've seen films with Robert Page before. And watching him here with the little mustache, he sort of reminded me of a doughy William Powell. And I thought he did a good job here as the long-suffering guy that Claire just hung on to and dragged him along endlessly, but it did start to seem a little bit ridiculous how his character just continued to suffer at the hands of this manipulative woman, especially when there was much more genuine affection from the character June that he works with, the Mildred Coles character, who would have been much better for him. I also like seeing James Griffith as a character Al, the other stilted ex who seemed maybe a little more jaded and cynical about the character Claire. I thought he brought maybe a more realistic balance to the story. At least he seemed to understand a little bit better what was going on. Anyhow, that's my thoughts on the film Blond Ice from 1948. This was an enjoyable crime film about a lovely but deadly woman who goes after wealthy men who all seem to die mysteriously. Now, Leslie Brooks did a great job here as the Blond Ice character. And this one notably is in the public domain. It's free on Prime and YouTube. It's easy to find. It's a great crime film, and I think it's one worth checking out.